I always thought the worst thing someone could do at Thanksgiving was bring up politics. Turns out the real turkey killer is my sister Corrine, with her glittering smile and razor blade tongue. My name is Marlo Hensley. I'm 31, living alone in a one-bedroom flat that I worked tooth and nail to afford. I've spent the last 6 years at Pinnacle Solutions, one of the largest consulting firms on the East Coast. I started as an admin, but clawed my way up to mid-level operations manager. Not flashy, not glamorous, but I'm proud of it. Or I was, until Corrine opened her mouth last Thanksgiving. I can still taste the dry, overcooked turkey and the sweet bitterness of her words. We were packed into my parents' dining room, one of those old New England colonials where the ceilings are too low and the heat never reaches your toes. I was wedged between my cousin Lyle and a stack of mashed potatoes when Corinne leaned across the table, her diamond bracelet clinking against her wine glass. "Marlo," she purred, flipping her hair behind her shoulder. "How's your little desk job going? Still doing all the, pathetic admin stuff?" The entire table went silent. Even the kids stopped flicking peas at each other. My mother gave me that look, part pity, part warning. "Don't make a scene." I laughed, even though my face felt hot. "I'm an operations manager, actually. Not really admin anymore." I tried to keep my tone light. My father cleared his throat, trying to break the tension, but Corrine just wouldn't let it go. She leaned back, her lips twisted in a smirk. "Oh, right. Operations. Sounds thrilling." Her husband, Chad, Mr. MBA, Mr. Portfolio Diversification, didn't even look up from his phone. I watched him scroll, probably checking the Dow Jones while I felt about 3 inches tall. I should have let it roll off me. I know Corrine. I've known her my whole life. But something about that night burrowed under my skin. Maybe it was the way my father squeezed my shoulder like I was a child. Maybe it was the way my mother asked Chad about his hedge fund right afterward, her eyes sparkling like he was the second coming. Or maybe it was just me, tired of always feeling like the plain one, the sensible one, the boring one. After dinner, I stood in the kitchen scraping plates into the trash. Corrine waltzed in, heels clicking against the old linoleum. She poured herself another glass of wine. "You know," she said, swirling the glass like we were at some fancy vineyard instead of our parents' drafty kitchen, "you could do better." "Better than what?" I asked, scraping harder than I needed to. "Better than that job. You're smart. You could go back to school, maybe do what Chad does. You've settled." I turned to her then, really looked at her. The perfectly blown-out hair, the designer dress she'd bragged about buying on sale, though we all knew she didn't care about the price. The gold necklace resting above her collarbone like a crown. "Thanks for the pep talk," I said. "But I'm good," she laughed, a cruel little bark that bounced off the kitchen tiles. "Sure you are." She left me there with the plates and her words. I thought that would be the end of it. A nasty comment, a bruise to my pride. But that bruise turned into something else. I went back to my apartment that night and lay awake, staring at the water stain on my ceiling, replaying every smug look she'd ever thrown my way. 2 weeks later, the world shifted. It started as a rumor at the office. There were layoffs coming down the pipeline. Big ones. Pinnacle Solutions was restructuring. They always called it that, like we were furniture to be rearranged. I kept my head down, my work tight, my team motivated. Operations was the spine of the company. Or so I thought. On a rainy Wednesday morning, I found myself in the executive conference room with a folder in front of me. 50 names. 50 people I had to let go before Christmas. I stared at the list. One name jumped out at me like a ghost. Chadwick E. Mayers, Corrine's golden boy, her smug, phone-scrolling husband. He'd joined Pinnacle 2 years ago in strategic growth. I'd barely seen him around. Different departments, different floors. But there he was, in my pile of pink slips. I could have flagged it. Could have asked for him to be reassigned to someone else. But I didn't. That Friday, I scheduled the meeting. Chad strolled in, wearing his tailored suit, oblivious. He sat across from me and smirked like he was about to humor the help. "Marlo, right? Good to see you." I nodded. My palms were damp against the folder. "Chad, this isn't easy." He leaned back. What's up? I took a breath, steadying my voice. Your position's been eliminated. Effective immediately. His smirk cracked. Excuse me. I repeated it, word for word. The script HR drilled into us. Chad's face went red, then white. He stood up so fast his chair skidded across the carpet. Do you know who I am? He hissed. Yes, I said. And I'm sorry, truly. He stormed out, slamming the glass door so hard the wall rattled. I sat there, heart hammering, half expecting Karine to burst in after him. Claws out. But she didn't. Not yet. By the time I got back to my desk, my phone was buzzing. Karine's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. And ring. And ring. I didn't answer. I just watched the screen go black. That night, I went home to my quiet apartment. I poured a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Powerful. But mostly I felt cold. The bruise Karine gave me at Thanksgiving had grown into something I couldn't name. Something that tasted like freedom. And fear. The next morning, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peered through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. Karine was on my doorstep, her eyes wild, hair unkempt, wearing a coat she probably hadn't bothered to button all the way. I cracked the door open an inch. Karine! She shoved it wide, forcing her way in. What the hell did you do, Marlo? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. I stood there, barefoot on my cold kitchen tile, staring at Karine like she was a ghost. She looked different in the harsh morning light. Her usual perfect hair frizzy around her temples, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She was still beautiful, of course. Karine always looked good, even in her worst moments. But today, she looked dangerous. She slammed the door shut behind her, the echo ringing through my tiny flat. What the hell did you do, Marlo? I backed up a step, bumping against the edge of my counter. Karine, you can't just barge in here. She crossed the space between us in 2 strides, her eyes burning holes into mine. You think you're so clever? You think this makes you better than me? I didn't do anything except my job, I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. Bullshit. She practically spat the word. You humiliated him. Do you have any idea what you've done to us? What I've done, I laughed, bitter and sharp. He was laid off, along with 50 other people, Karine. It wasn't personal. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Of course it was personal. You've always hated me, hated us. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words got stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat. Was she right? Maybe a part of me had enjoyed it, seeing Chad's smug grin wiped clean, hearing the panic in his voice. But I didn't want this. I didn't want her here, spitting venom in my kitchen. You should go, I said softly. You think you're better than me now? She sneered, stepping so close I could smell her expensive perfume, sour under the sweat of anger. Your pathetic job isn't so pathetic anymore, huh? Get out, I said. My voice was firmer this time. I mean it, Karine. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. I saw something flicker behind her eyes, something raw and terrified, but she shoved it down just as quickly. She grabbed her purse off my table, knocking a coffee mug to the floor. It shattered into porcelain shards that scattered across my feet. This isn't over, she hissed. The door slammed so hard it rattled the dishes in my cabinets. I sank to the floor, brushing the broken mug pieces into a small pile with my trembling fingers. I felt numb. What was I supposed to do? Apologize? Call Chad and beg for his forgiveness? No. He was one name on a list. It could have been anyone. But it wasn't anyone. It was him. And Karine would never forgive me for it. ... Work was a minefield after that. I kept my head down, but gossip spread like wildfire. Chad's name came up in hushed hallway whispers. People eyed me as if I'd pulled the trigger myself. Maybe I had. The Monday after Kareen's visit, I found an envelope taped to my office door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a printout of an old college photo. Me, drunk at some house party, slumped against a toilet, middle finger in the air. Someone had scrawled in Sharpie across the bottom. Still pathetic. I crushed the paper in my fist and shoved it into my purse before anyone could see. My hands were shaking when I sat at my desk. I didn't need to guess who sent it. Kareen had always been petty, but this was a new low. That night, I called my mom. I didn't know what I wanted. Comfort, maybe, understanding. But I didn't get either. You should apologize, she said gently after I told her everything. Apologize? For what? Doing my job? Your sister is hurting, Marlo. You know how hard Chad's worked? And I haven't? My voice cracked. Do you even hear yourself? She sighed. Family is family. Try to be the bigger person. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. I sat on my couch, the TV flickering on mute, and stared at my reflection in the black window. Be the bigger person. I'd been the bigger person my whole life. .. A week later, Kareen showed up at my office. She marched past reception like she owned the place. I heard the click of her heels before I saw her, my stomach dropping with each step. We need to talk, she snapped, ignoring my assistant's protests. I stood, blocking her path to my desk. Not here. Then where? She demanded. At your shitty apartment again? I motioned her out into the hallway. She stormed ahead, leading me to the stairwell. It smelled like bleach and stale coffee. Kareen spun on me, her eyes wild. You think you've won? You think this is over? Chad can't find another job. No one will hire him now. You destroyed us. I crossed my arms. He'll find something. He's smart. You don't get it, do you? She laughed bitterly. You really think you're one of them now? The big shots up there? You're nothing, Marlo. They'll chew you up next. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. I'm going to make sure you regret this. I flinched. What does that mean? She didn't answer. She pushed past me, heels echoing down the stairs. I stood there, heart pounding, hands clammy. The stairwell door slammed shut below me. For a long time, I couldn't move. .. That night, I lay in bed, staring at my phone. No calls from Kareen. No apologies. Not that I expected any. But I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice. I'm going to make sure you regret this. Regret what? Doing what I was told? Protecting my team? Or maybe protecting myself? The next day, my boss called me into his office. He didn't look me in the eye as he gestured for me to sit. Marlo, we've received a formal complaint. From who? But I already knew. He cleared his throat. There's been an allegation that you manipulated the layoff list to target an employee you had a personal conflict with. I laughed, but it came out hollow. That's ridiculous. We have to investigate, Marlo. It's procedure. You'll be on administrative leave while we sort this out. As in, stay home while they dug through my emails, my files, my meetings. This is insane, I said, my voice rising. You know I didn't do anything wrong. He finally looked at me then, pity softening the edges of his stern face. You know how it works, Marlo. We have to follow protocol. I stood, my legs feeling like lead. How long? A few weeks. Maybe longer. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice to say anything else. I gathered my bag and walked out, feeling every pair of eyes on me as I passed. I could almost hear them whispering, "There goes Marlo. Thought she was untouchable. .. I spent the next 3 days on my couch, wearing the same sweatpants, surrounded by empty coffee cups and half-eaten takeout containers. Kareen didn't call. I didn't reach out. What was there to say? On the 4th day, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Chad and Kareen, smiling, sitting on a beach somewhere. The caption read, "Thanks for the vacation, bitch." My stomach turned. I threw my phone across the room, watching it bounce off the armrest and land on the floor. I curled into a ball, hugging my knees to my chest. The anger burned so hot it felt cold. They were celebrating. While I was here, waiting to find out if I'd lose everything. No, I wouldn't let them win. I pulled myself up, grabbed my laptop and started digging. If Karine wanted to play dirty, fine, two could play that game. I opened every file, every email, every scrap of evidence I could find. If they were going to accuse me of targeting Chad, I'd prove how deep his incompetence really ran. Missed deadlines, mishandled accounts, petty arguments with colleagues. There was plenty, but none of it felt like enough. Not yet. At 2 in the morning, I found something buried deep in a shared drive, a folder labeled Q4 Expansion. It was an old pitch deck Chad had worked on. I clicked through the slides, my eyes narrowing. Numbers that didn't add up. Revenue projections inflated to the point of absurdity. And at the bottom of the last slide, his signature. Fraud. Or something close to it. My heart raced. Maybe this could clear my name. Maybe it could sink him for good. I was so focused I didn't hear the footsteps outside my door until it was too late. A sharp knock made me jump. I froze, listening. Then the doorknob rattled. I closed my laptop, heart hammering in my throat. I crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. Karine. Again. But this time she wasn't alone. Beside her was Chad. His eyes met mine through the tiny glass circle, and he smiled. A smile that made my blood run cold. Before I could react, Karine raised her hand and knocked again. This time her voice was sweet as syrup. Marlo, open up. We just want to talk. My fingers hovered over the deadbolt. I knew if I opened that door, nothing good would come of it. Marlo, Chad called, his voice muffled through the door. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I backed away, step by trembling step. I glanced at my phone. Dead. Of course it was dead. I grabbed the charging cable and fumbled to plug it in, my hands shaking. Another knock. Louder. Harder. Marlo! Karine's voice lost its sweetness, turning sharp and dangerous. Open the damn door! My eyes darted to the window. 5th floor. No fire escape. No way out. I swallowed the lump in my throat and grabbed the heaviest thing I could find. A ceramic lamp from my side table. I stood there in the middle of my living room, lamp clutched in both hands, listening to them pound on the door like wolves scratching at the wood. I didn't know what they wanted, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going down without a fight. ... They kept pounding on the door until I thought the hinges would snap. Each blow made my heart thud harder against my ribs, like my body was trying to break free from the inside. I gripped the lamp so tight my knuckles burned white. We know you're in there. Chad's voice was muffled but furious. I imagined his face, red, veins bulging in his forehead, the same way it looked when I'd handed him that folder in the conference room. I backed up toward the kitchen. I needed an exit plan, but there wasn't one. 5th floor, single door, no fire escape. My phone buzzed weakly on the counter, finally powering back on. I lunged for it, nearly dropping the lamp. My fingers danced across the screen, dialing 911 with a cold, shaky swipe. Another crash. The doorknob rattled. Karine's shriek cut through the wood. Marlo, you think you're so smart? You think you're gonna ruin us? I hit call. The ringing felt like an eternity. 911, what's your emergency? There are people trying to break into my apartment, I whispered. My sister and her husband. I think they're trying to hurt me. Are they armed? I don't know, I breathed. Please, just send someone. Stay on the line with me, ma'am. Officers are on their way. But then, the pounding stopped. Silence. My breath caught in my chest. I strained to hear. Nothing. The quiet was worse than the banging. I crept back toward the peephole. Empty hallway. No shadows, no footsteps. Marlo! Corinne's voice drifted through the wood like a ghost. We're not done. A soft laugh. Chad's, low and mocking. Then footsteps receding down the corridor. Ma'am, the dispatcher said in my ear. Are they still there? I couldn't answer. I just stared at the door, my heartbeat echoing in my head. Dash, 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 dot, dot. When the police finally arrived, Corinne and Chad were long gone. The officers were kind but skeptical. Domestic dispute, they wrote. Family conflict. One of them gave me a card with a phone number for a victim's advocate. I stuck it to my fridge, where it fluttered every time I opened the door. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. I called my landlord about the deadbolt. He agreed to replace it, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. Family trouble, huh? I didn't bother explaining. By the time Monday rolled around, the building security guard knew my face by heart. He gave me a polite nod every time I passed, but I could feel the weight of his pity. I hated that feeling more than the fear. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Being on leave was worse than being fired. Each day crawled by like a slow leak in my sanity. I woke up, checked my email. Nothing. No update from HR. No word from my boss. My savings were enough to keep me afloat for a few months, but the what-ifs gnawed at my brain like termites. What if I lost my job for good? What if no one else would hire me? What if Corinne ruined everything I'd worked for? One night, I found myself standing in my living room at 3 a.m., staring at the folder I'd printed. Chad's fraudulent pitch. The numbers were a lie, plain and simple. But was it enough? Would the company care, or would they sweep it under the rug to save face? I needed more. I poured another glass of wine, my fourth that night. The buzz softened the edges of my panic. I grabbed my laptop, logging into my old admin account, one they hadn't shut off yet, probably an oversight. I knew it was risky, maybe even against company policy. But what did I have to lose? I started digging. Meeting notes, expense reports, travel invoices. Chad's digital fingerprints were everywhere, sloppy and arrogant. Payments to consultants that didn't exist. Lavish dinners billed as client meetings, but with no record of who attended. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. As dawn crept over the city, I sat surrounded by pages of printed emails and spreadsheets. A paper fortress. My fortress. But a fortress is no good if you're alone in it. I needed help. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The next day, I called the only person I could think of. Cara Devlin, an old friend from my early days at Pinnacle. She'd moved to London for a job with a competing firm, but we'd kept in touch. Cara was smart, ruthless, and hated Chad on principle. "You're awake," she said when she answered, her voice thick with sleep. "It's 6 a.m. here." "I'm sorry. I wouldn't call unless... Is it about your psycho sister and her douchebag husband?" I almost laughed. "Yeah, it's about them." I told her everything. The Thanksgiving insult, the layoffs, the complaint, the break-in, or whatever that was. I read her snippets of the emails I'd found. By the end, Cara was wide awake. "Jesus, Marlo," she said. "You need to lawyer up." "I don't have money for that." "Then go to the press." "You think they'd care?" "Are you kidding? Big consulting firm, corporate fraud, rich white guy blowing investor money? It's catnip for them." Her words sparked something inside me. A tiny flame of hope. "You think they'd protect me?" "No," she said bluntly. "But they'll make it a hell of a lot harder for Chad and Corinne to bury you." She promised to connect me with a journalist she knew, some hotshot business reporter who loved a good corporate scandal. I hung up and stared at the stack of papers, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. A plan. Dash, 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 dot, dot. 3 days later, I sat in a dingy coffee shop downtown, a folder on my lap. Across from me was Julian Cross, early 30s, baby-faced, with hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it 10 times too many. He wore a tweed jacket with a threadbare elbow patch, like he'd stepped out of a Netflix crime doc. He flipped through my pages, whistling under his breath. This is gold. If you're right, this isn't just Chad, it's whoever signed off on these projections. You can't use my name, I said quickly. Or my job. He looked up at me, one eyebrow raised. You came to me, Marlo. If I run this, your sister's gonna know exactly who burned them. I swallowed hard. I know. Then you'd better be ready to run the fire drill. He tapped the folder. When this drops, it's gonna get ugly. You sure you want that? I thought about Corinne's eyes as she pounded on my door. About Chad's smile through the peephole. About the envelope on my office door, the vacation photo, the deadbolt I still didn't trust. I'm sure, I said. He nodded. Okay, hero, buckle up. ... The story hit 3 days later. Insider fraud at Pinnacle Solutions. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Texts, missed calls, social media exploding with shares and hashtags. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, some with congratulations, others fishing for gossip. But the worst was the call from my mother. How could you do this to your sister? She demanded before I could say a word. This isn't about her, Mom. Chad lied, he stole. You've always been jealous of her. Now look what you've done. You've ruined our family's name. I laughed, but it felt hollow. You're worried about the family name? You're not welcome here for Christmas, she snapped. Do you hear me? I hung up before she could slam the door with her voice. I thought it would break me. But it didn't. It made me angry. The righteous kind. The kind that burns clean. ... The fallout was swift. Pinnacle went into PR overdrive, promising a full internal audit. Chad's name splashed across every business blog in the city. I heard he tried to claim he'd been framed, but the numbers didn't lie. Corinne's social media went dark. The last thing she posted was a picture of her and Chad at some rooftop bar, smiling like they owned the world. I watched it all unfold from my couch, the same place I'd been when she called my job pathetic, the same couch where I'd sat for days, terrified of losing everything. Now they were the ones losing everything, but I didn't feel good, not exactly. The bruises she'd left in me ran deeper than the layoffs, deeper than Chad's arrogance. I'd spent my whole life letting Corinne define me. The boring one. The sensible one. The backup plan. Now, for the first time, she didn't have that power anymore. I was still waiting to hear if I'd get my job back. HR called me once, their tone awkward and formal. You'll be reinstated pending the audit. Pending. Always pending. I told them fine. But inside, I knew I was done letting them decide who I was. The night after the article dropped, I heard a noise outside my apartment. A soft, careful knock. My heart leapt to my throat. I crept to the door, lamp in hand again. Old habits. I peered through the peephole. Corinne. Alone this time. No Chad, no shrieking threats. Just Corinne, looking small for the first time in my memory. Her hair was a mess, her eyes red. She looked up at the peephole like she knew I was there. Marlo, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please, I need to talk. I stayed behind the door, my hand resting on the deadbolt. I felt the weight of all our Thanksgivings, all the insults, all the pitying looks. I felt the sharp blade of her tongue and the soft poison of her smile. Marlo, she said again, please. I didn't open the door. Not yet, but I didn't walk away either. I didn't open the door for her that night. I stood there, breathing against the wood, my ear pressed to the cool grain as Corinne's voice broke in whispers on the other side. She knocked again, softer this time, but I didn't move. I waited until her footsteps faded down the hallway before I slid to the floor, back against the door, the old deadbolt like a fragile lock against everything we'd ever been. Sleep never came. I sat up all night, thinking about what she would have said if I'd let her in. An apology? An accusation wrapped in tears? Or something else? Something raw, buried beneath years of birthday parties, family dinners, and the poisonous way she'd always said my name like it tasted sour. When the sun cracked over the city's skyline, I made my decision. I called Kara first. If she comes back, I need you on standby. You want me to get on a plane? Kara's voice was flat, but I could hear the rustle of papers. She was already checking flights. Marlo, you really think she'll… I don't know what she wants. I pinched the bridge of my nose. But I'm not letting her corner me alone again. Kara sighed. Fine. Text me if she shows up. And for God's sake, keep your phone charged. I spent the morning pacing my tiny flat, my footsteps echoing between the walls like the ghosts of every word Corinne had ever thrown at me. I thought about the Thanksgiving table, her smirk, my father's uncomfortable cough, my mother's forced smile. I wondered if they'd ever really seen me. Or if they'd only ever seen the empty space I was supposed to fill when Corinne wasn't enough. When the knock came again that evening, I was ready. I didn't open the door right away. I made her stand there, shifting from foot to foot in the hallway's flickering light. When I finally turned the lock, I kept the chain on, just a few inches of space between us. She looked worse than before. Eyes swollen, mascara smudged, hair pulled back in a careless knot. There was no diamond necklace this time. No glittering bracelet to catch the light. Just Corinne, stripped down to the bones. Marlo, she said, her voice hoarse, can we talk? I studied her through the gap. About what? About everything. That's not an answer. She flinched, like she expected me to slam the door in her face. Please, just 5 minutes. I didn't trust her, but I was tired of playing the ghost in my own life. I slid the chain off and stepped back, letting her in. Corinne hesitated on the threshold. For a second, I thought she might run, but she crossed the line, her heels clicking softly on my cheap tile. She stood in the middle of my living room like she didn't recognize it. The same room she'd called shabby when she'd come over for wine years ago. The same couch she'd once said was too small for company. Now it looked like a fortress between us. Say what you came to say, I told her, my arms folded tight against my chest. She sat on the edge of my couch, hands trembling in her lap. I didn't know, she whispered. About Chad. About the fraud. I didn't know any of it. And if you had, I asked, would you have done anything different? She looked up at me, eyes brimming with tears. I would have stopped him. I swear I would have. I laughed, sharp, bitter. You expect me to believe that? You've spent your whole life pretending not to see what you don't want to. I know, her voice cracked. I know I've been horrible to you. But you have to understand, everything we had was built on him. On his job, his connections. Without it, she shook her head. It's all falling apart. Good, I said before I could stop myself. Let it fall apart. Corinne sucked in a breath like I'd slapped her. You don't mean that. Don't I? I stepped closer, the anger I'd buried for years simmering to the surface. You called my job pathetic. You made me feel small every chance you got. And now you want me to feel sorry for you? I never wanted this, she whispered. Neither did I. My voice was calm, steady. But here we are. She looked around the room, her eyes darting to the stacks of papers on my coffee table. The emails, the pitch deck, the pieces of her husband's lies scattered like confetti. They're gonna come after you, she said. You know that, right? Chad won't go down alone. Let him try. I crossed my arms tighter, feeling the pulse of my own resolve like a drumbeat. I'm not afraid of him. Corinne laughed. A dry, hollow sound. You should be. I studied her, really studied her. The tremor in her hands, the twitch at the corner of her mouth, the way her eyes darted to the door, as if she was waiting for someone. Waiting for him. Where is he? I asked. She flinched again. I don't know. Liar. She looked up, her eyes shining with a desperation that almost made me believe her. He left, after the story broke. He said he needed to fix it. He hasn't come home in 2 days. And you think he's coming here? She didn't answer. But she didn't have to. I sat frozen on the edge of my couch long after Detective Ronan hung up. The hum of the city outside my window sounded muffled, like I was underwater. My hands felt numb around my phone. An incident. You may be in danger. The words spun through my head like shards of glass. I knew I should call Kara, but my throat felt tight. I wanted to hear another voice, someone who'd tell me I was overreacting, that this was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. Kareen's warning echoed in my mind. He's not done with you yet. I went to my bedroom closet and pulled out the battered overnight bag I hadn't touched in years. I stuffed it with the bare essentials: jeans, a few sweaters, the thick wool socks Kara had sent me one Christmas when my heating went out. I grabbed the folders from my coffee table, every printed email, every receipt, every piece of evidence. I held them tight to my chest like a lifeline. I didn't want to wait around for Chad to decide what "not done" meant. Detective Ronan's precinct was a low brick building that smelled like stale coffee and last night's rain. The waiting room buzzed with quiet conversations and the occasional bark of a phone. A young officer led me down a hallway lined with posters about community outreach and neighborhood watch programs. The normalcy of it felt wrong, like I'd stepped into the wrong movie. Ronan looked exactly how I'd pictured him. Late 40s, graying hair, a suit that had seen better days. He gestured for me to sit across from his cluttered desk. He didn't waste time. Miss Hensley, how well do you know Chadwick Mayers? I laughed. Short, sharp. Better than I ever wanted to. He didn't crack a smile. We found his car abandoned under the FDR overpass this morning. Engine running, door open, no sign of him. A shiver crept down my spine. So, he's missing? We don't know that yet. Ronan tapped a pen against a notepad. Neighbors say they saw him leaving your building last night. Did he contact you? I told him everything. About Kareen pounding on my door, Chad's threats, the break-in attempt, about the fraud, the article, the phone calls, the envelope taped to my office door. As I spoke, Ronan's pen scratched faster and faster across the page. Do you think he'd hurt you? He asked. I think he'd do anything to protect himself, I said honestly. He's desperate. Ronan leaned back, studying me with tired eyes. Desperate people do stupid things. If you see him, if he contacts you in any way, you call me. Don't engage. What about Corinne? I asked. Is she safe? He shrugged. She says she doesn't know where he is. Says she hasn't seen him since you kicked her out. The words stung, though they shouldn't have. Do you believe her? He didn't answer. Before he let me go, he handed me a card with his direct line scribbled across the back. Keep your doors locked, he said. And Marlowe, he paused, searching for the right words. Be careful who you trust. ... Outside, the city looked different. The people on the sidewalks felt like ghosts, shadows flitting past me. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself, my fingers clutching the strap of my overnight bag so hard it cut into my shoulder. I ducked into a coffee shop 2 blocks away. I needed a place to think, somewhere Chad wouldn't find me if he was watching. The barista gave me a strange look when I asked for a table near the back, far from the windows. I sipped burnt coffee and stared at my phone. 2 missed calls from an unknown number. I didn't call back. Then my screen lit up again. Kara. You're on the news, she said before I could speak. Did you know that? What? Your name's all over it. Whistleblower at Pinnacle. Some anchor was reading the press statement from your company like it was a grocery list. They're throwing you under the bus. My stomach lurched. What are they saying? That you acted alone? That you leaked confidential financials out of spite because your sister's husband was laid off? They're framing you as a disgruntled employee. I pressed my hand to my forehead, the table cold against my knuckles. They can't do that. Of course they can. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, Marlowe. They'll do anything to keep their investors from bolting. What do I do? You fight back, Kara said fiercely. You have the proof. You have the receipts. You want me to fly in? I will. I'll stand next to you at every press conference if I have to. I closed my eyes. I can't drag you into this. Too late, she said. You're stuck with me. .. When I got back to my apartment, my stomach twisted at the sight of my own door. I checked the locks 3 times before I stepped inside. Everything was as I'd left it. Coffee mugs on the counter, the cheap lamp by the couch. But the air felt different, heavier. I dropped my bag by the door and flipped through the stack of papers on my table. I needed to organize it all. Build a case strong enough to crush whatever lies Chad and Pinnacle threw my way. My phone buzzed with an email from Julian, the reporter. Got word from a source inside Pinnacle. Chad's been funneling money off the books for months. Might have tied it to offshore accounts. If you have anything else, now's the time. My hands shook as I typed back. Come get it. I'm not hiding. I hit send and sank to the floor, leaning against the couch. My eyes burned from days of no sleep. The shadows in my apartment flickered with every passing car outside. I wanted to believe I was safe, that the deadbolt was enough. But when I finally drifted off, I dreamed of Chad's voice behind my ear, whispering my name like a promise. .. I woke to the sound of glass shattering. My eyes snapped open, the room still half draped in darkness. The noise came again. Another window, maybe my bedroom. I scrambled up, heart hammering so loud, I thought it might drown out the crunch of footsteps on broken glass. I grabbed the heavy lamp from my table, my makeshift weapon, the same one I'd clutched the first time they came for me. I inched toward the hallway, every shadow a threat. A figure moved in the doorway, tall, broad shoulders, the silhouette unmistakable. Chad. Marlowe, he breathed, his voice almost gentle. You made this so much harder than it needed to be. I raised the lamp higher, my arms trembling. Get out. He stepped closer, his shoes crunching on glass. You should have kept your mouth shut. We could have fixed this. Fixed what? You lied. You stole. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. The lamp clattered to the floor, skidding across the tiles. He shoved me back against the wall, his grip iron tight. You think you're better than me? His breath was hot, rancid. You think you're some hero? I struggled, kicking at his shins, but he didn't budge. I could feel the bruises blooming beneath his fingers. His other hand fumbled for something in his pocket. A glint of metal in the half-light. You're done talking, he hissed. I twisted, adrenaline surging through me like fire. My free hand found the broken lamp on the floor. I swung it upward, the ceramic base connecting with his temple in a dull, sickening crack. He staggered back, his grip loosening just enough for me to slip free. I ran, barefoot, glass slicing my feet, the hallway blurring around me. I heard him curse behind me, his footsteps pounding like a drumbeat. I dove for the door, fingers fumbling with the lock. The deadbolt stuck, refusing to budge. I yanked harder, tears streaking my cheeks. A crash. He was coming. I braced myself, slammed my shoulder into the door, and it flew open. I stumbled into the hallway, nearly colliding with my neighbor, an older man who'd been startled by the noise. His eyes went wide when he saw Chad barreling toward me. Call the police, I screamed. I didn't wait to see if he did. I ran, down the stairs, out the front door into the biting cold of the city night. I didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away, my feet raw and bleeding, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I ducked into the neon glow of a late-night diner. The waitress stared as I stumbled in, barefoot, wild-eyed, blood trailing behind me. Please, I croaked, call the police. She did. And for the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I'd survive this. .. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. ... I sat in the harsh glow of the diner's fluorescent lights, feet tucked under me. A thin blanket someone had draped across my shoulders. The waitress, a kind-faced woman named Rita, hovered nearby, pouring me endless cups of weak coffee that I barely touched. My feet throbbed, crusted with dried blood where glass had bitten deep. But the ache in my chest drowned out every other pain. The door chimed every time a customer came or went, making me flinch. The early morning crowd had drifted in, construction workers grabbing bacon and eggs before their shift, an exhausted nurse hunched over a styrofoam cup. No one looked at me for too long, but I could feel their eyes, pitying, curious, wary. I wanted to disappear into the red vinyl booth. It wasn't long before the police arrived. Not the same officers as before. These ones were younger, sharper. They spoke in low, measured voices, asking me to repeat my story over and over while they typed everything into a tablet. "You said Chad Mayers broke in through your window?" the female officer asked, her pen tapping the edge of her clipboard. "He shattered the glass in my bedroom." My voice caught. "He had something in his pocket. A knife, maybe. I don't know." "Did he say what he wanted?" "He said I should have kept my mouth shut, that I made this harder." They exchanged a glance I couldn't read. Then the younger officer leaned forward. "Do you have anywhere else you can stay tonight?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You think he won't find me?" "We'll put an alert out for him," she said, "but it's safer if you don't go home alone." I rubbed my palms against the chipped formica table. "My sister, Corinne, she might know where he is. We'll talk to her." The officer's eyes softened. "We'll find him, Ms. Hensley. .. They found Corinne at her apartment the next afternoon. Or rather, they found what was left of her calm. She let them in, uncharacteristically meek, and answered their questions with the same blank detachment I'd seen in my living room the last time she came crawling to me. I knew because Kara was there. She'd shown up at my side that morning, 2 suitcases in hand, eyes fierce behind a pair of wire-rimmed glasses. "You're not alone in this," she'd said. "Not anymore." We sat across from each other in the sterile white waiting room outside the precinct's interview rooms. Through the narrow window I could see Corinne hunched in a chair, her hair pulled into a limp ponytail, her eyes sunken and bruised from lack of sleep. "She looks terrible," Kara muttered, tapping her foot. "She's terrified," I said. "He's out there somewhere. She should be terrified. She lied for him for years." I didn't respond. Part of me wanted to defend Corinne, to reach for that tiny shard of sisterhood that hadn't been buried yet. But the rest of me knew Kara was right. When Corinne finally emerged, she saw me instantly. Her eyes darted away like a guilty child. She pulled her coat tight around her shoulders, stepping close enough that I could smell the stale coffee on her breath. "They're going to find him, right?" she asked, her voice small. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Did you tell them everything?" She flinched. "I told them what they needed to hear." Kara let out a disgusted snort. "So no." Corinne's eyes snapped to her. "You think this is all so black and white? You don't know him like I do." "Thank God for that," Kara shot back. I stepped between them before Corinne could spit another venomous word. "Where is he, Corinne?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Her eyes flicked over my shoulder, scanning the hallway like she expected him to materialize behind me. "I don't know," she whispered. "I really don't. .. They assigned me a patrol car to watch my building. An officer parked at the curb day and night, the red and blue lights off but the presence clear enough to send a message. "We know you're out there, Chad. We're waiting." But the waiting was its own kind of torture. Kara stayed with me, working on her laptop at my kitchen table, filling the silence with the click of keys. I spent my days cataloging every scrap of evidence I had, building a fortress out of printouts and post-it notes. "If Pinnacle tries to spin this any harder," Kara said one night, "we'll drown them in receipts. They'll just say I'm lying, that I'm a disgruntled nobody. Not anymore." She looked up from her screen, her eyes fierce. "They messed with the wrong nobody. We both laughed, but the sound felt like a hairline crack in the glass bubble we were living in. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every ring of my phone sent my heart racing. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Detective Ronan called. "We found him," he said. Or rather, he turned himself in. I almost dropped the mug I was holding. What? He walked into the precinct down on 23 RD. Said he wanted to clear his name. He's claiming you forged everything. That you fabricated the entire fraud to ruin him. My knees went weak. Kara caught me before I could sink to the floor. "He's lying," I said, breathless. "We know," Ronan said. "But you need to be prepared. He's lawyered up. He's going to try to paint you as unstable, vindictive. He wants to destroy your credibility." "And Corinne?" "She's cooperating," he said carefully. "But she's unreliable. Her statements contradict each other." "Because she's afraid," I whispered. "Or complicit," Kara snapped. Ronan's voice softened. "Marlo, I need you to stay strong. This isn't over." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark window. It didn't feel like me staring back. My hair was greasy, eyes ringed in exhaustion. But beneath it, something burned, something sharper than fear. The preliminary hearing was set for a week later. I wore the only suit I owned. Black. A little too tight around the shoulders, the hem frayed from years of closet neglect. Kara walked in beside me like an avenging angel in a blazer. She squeezed my hand so tight I thought my bones might crack. The courtroom was small, stale air thick with anticipation. Chad sat at the defense table, hair slicked back, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent for a year. He didn't look at me as I walked in. Didn't have to. I could feel his stare like an oil slick coating my skin. Corinne was there too, seated behind him. Her eyes were hidden behind oversized sunglasses, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse into knots. When our eyes met, something flickered in her expression. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. The lawyers droned on, laying out motions and countermotions. Chad's attorney painted him as a victim, misled by incompetent staff, betrayed by an emotionally unstable junior employee with a personal vendetta. My stomach twisted with every lie, but I kept my face still, my spine straight. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and let my voice shake for exactly 3 seconds before I found my center. "I didn't fabricate anything," I said. "I brought forward what I found because it was the truth. Because the truth matters, no matter how ugly it is." Chad smirked, whispering something to his lawyer. I locked eyes with him and didn't look away until the judge banged her gavel. The case didn't end that day. Of course it didn't. Chad's people filed more motions, delaying every hearing, muddying the waters. But every day they dragged it out. They bled money. And every day, more of my story trickled out. Reporters digging deeper. Old colleagues leaking emails that backed me up piece by piece. I thought the waiting would kill me, but it didn't. It made me stronger. Corinne called me one night after a particularly brutal day in court. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to hear her voice. "I can't do this anymore," she said. Her voice was raw, broken. "I'm sorry, Marlo, I should have believed you." I closed my eyes, sinking into my couch. "You did what you always do. You looked away." "He ruined everything," she whispered. "And I helped him do it." I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't say I hated her either. We sat in silence for a long time, connected by nothing but the ghost of what we'd once been. "I don't know where I'll go," she said finally. "Wherever you go," I said, "make sure you don't follow him there." She hung up without another word. In the end, Chad took a plea deal. He'd serve time, pay restitution, disappear into the prison system like so many self-made men who thought they were untouchable. Pinnacle's stock tanked. The board fired half its top execs. then hired a PR firm to spin the scandal into a brave new era of transparency. The irony wasn't lost on me. The day the verdict was announced, Kara and I sat in my apartment, eating Chinese takeout straight from the cartons. She raised her plastic fork like a toast, to the nobody who wouldn't stay quiet. I clinked my fork against hers. To the friend who made sure I didn't have to do it alone. Outside, the city lights pulsed like a heartbeat. I leaned back against the couch, feeling the bruises on my wrists, the scars on my feet. They would fade in time. But the strength I'd found in the wreckage, that was mine to keep. I got a job offer 6 weeks later, a small firm on the other side of the city. Nothing flashy, but run by people who knew my name because of what I'd done. Not in spite of it. When they asked me in the interview if I'd learned anything from the scandal, I smiled. I learned that nobody's voice is too small to matter. They hired me on the spot. Sometimes I still think about that Thanksgiving dinner. The brittle smiles, the dry turkey, Kareen's laugh like broken glass. I wonder if she ever sits at her table now and thinks about me. The sister she tried to cut down to size. The sister who refused to stay small. I don't know. And maybe I don't care. Because this is my story now. And I get to decide how it ends. The first morning at the new job felt like stepping into another version of my life. One I'd never thought I'd get to live. The office was smaller than Pinnacle's sprawling glass towers, tucked into the second floor of a refurbished warehouse near the docks. It smelled like fresh paint and old brick, the hallway echoing with the low hum of people who actually liked being there. I wore a new blazer, a gift from Kara, who'd insisted I toss the funeral suit, as she called it. She'd even pinned a tiny silver star to the lapel. A reminder, she'd said. You survived. Now you get to shine. I ran my fingers over that star as I stepped through the glass doors. No security guards watching me with suspicion. No whispers behind my back. Just me, a blank page, and a job that didn't come with shadows lurking in every corner. The receptionist, a kid barely out of college with a tie too wide for his thin neck, looked up and grinned. Marlo Hensley? That's me, I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. They're waiting for you in the conference room. I thanked him and walked down the short hallway lined with corkboards covered in colorful post-its and pinned-up ideas. The energy felt alive in a way Pinnacle never did, like everyone here had something to build, not just something to protect. Inside the glass-walled conference room, 3 people stood to greet me. Evan, the founder, mid-30s, glasses sliding down his nose, a perpetual bedhead that made him look like he hadn't slept in days. Melissa, the operations lead, crisp but warm, with smile lines at the corners of her eyes that said she knew how to work hard and still find a reason to laugh. And next to her, Aisha, their HR manager, notebook in hand, eyes bright with curiosity. Marlo, Evan said, holding out his hand. Welcome to North Shore. I shook it, my grip firmer than it had been months ago. Thank you, I'm really glad to be here. They talked me through my first tasks, processes that needed rebuilding, a mess of old contracts that hadn't been touched in a decade, a tiny ops team that needed a real leader. It felt like walking into a house mid-renovation. Messy, imperfect, but full of promise. You're not scared of hard work, are you? Evan asked, half joking. Not anymore, I said, and meant it. The days passed in a blur. I buried myself in spreadsheets and checklists, untangling the chaos one knot at a time. My nights were quiet again. No shadows behind the door, no pounding on my windows. Just me, my laptop, and the soft murmur of the city beyond my window. Every so often, I'd catch my reflection in the dark glass, hair pinned up, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a tired but determined glint in my eyes. I didn't flinch at that version of me. I liked her. I trusted her. A month into the new job, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. For a split second, I felt my stomach twist, old instincts flaring to life. But I answered anyway. Marlo. The voice on the other end was small. Familiar. It's me, Kareen. There was a silence so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. "Can we talk?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hang up, to protect this fragile new version of my life from the wreckage of the old one. But another part, deeper and older, still wondered if there was a piece of her worth salvaging. "Where are you?" I asked. "In town. I'm not staying at the apartment." "Not since." She trailed off, her voice cracking. "Can I see you? Just for an hour." I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temple. "Okay, 1 hour. Public place. ... We met at a cafe near the waterfront. Neutral ground. Crowded enough to feel safe." Corinne was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to this world. She looked thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, no makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes. The expensive jewelry was gone. In its place was a thin gold chain I recognized from when we were kids. Mom's, probably. Something familiar to cling to. "Hi," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hi." Her voice was hoarse. She looked at me like she wanted to cry but didn't know how. "You look good." "You don't have to lie," I said, but I smiled anyway. "Why'd you want to see me, Corinne?" She flinched like the question hurt. "I needed to say it. To your face, I'm sorry. For everything. For Chad. For what I said at Thanksgiving. For making you feel like you were never enough." I felt the words hit me like a stone to the chest. "You can't take it back." "I know," she whispered. "But I'm trying to fix it. I told the police everything I knew. The real story. They're going to question me again about the offshore accounts. I can't keep pretending anymore." I studied her, searching for the manipulation I'd grown so used to. But it wasn't there. Just fear, regret, a rawness that almost made me ache for her. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. She shrugged helplessly. "I don't know. The house is gone. The money. It was all in his name. I'm staying at a motel. I don't even have a job." I wanted to feel triumphant, vindicated, but all I felt was tired. "You'll figure it out." "How?" She laughed, a sad, broken sound. "I don't know how to be like you, Marlo. You always knew how to stand on your own." "No," I said quietly. "I had to learn. The hard way." We sat in silence for a long time, two sisters divided by a lifetime of sharp words and softer wounds. When we finally stood to leave, she reached for me, her fingers brushing my sleeve like a ghost. "I really am sorry," she said. I looked into her eyes, so much like mine, but older, wearier, and nodded. "I know." She didn't ask for my help, and I didn't offer. Some things you have to build yourself. The weeks that followed felt like stepping out of a storm. I walked to work without looking over my shoulder. I sat at my desk without bracing for an accusation. I slept with my window open, the city breeze washing over me like a baptism. Kara visited often, usually with a bottle of wine under one arm and a stack of resumes under the other. "I might move here," she said one night, sprawled across my couch with her bare feet tucked under her. "Start over. New city, new messes to make." "I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between meetings and emails, I'd think about the life I'd had at Pinnacle. The version of me who'd sat at that Thanksgiving table, shrinking under Corine's words. The version who'd let people call her small, pathetic, invisible. She was gone, buried under a pile of glass shards, torn pages, and the weight of my own resolve. One Friday evening, as I was packing up my bag, Evan knocked on my doorframe. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Sure." I motioned for him to come in. He perched on the edge of the chair across from my desk, fiddling with a stress ball. "I know it's only been a couple of months, but I wanted to say, your work here has been incredible. The team loves you, the clients trust you, and I do too." My throat tightened. "Thank you. That means a lot." "We're growing," he said. "Faster than we planned. I want you to take the lead on our expansion project. London, maybe. Or Berlin. You'd build the new branch from the ground up. My heart skipped. Are you serious? Dead serious. You've got the backbone for it. The brains. The grit. I'd trust you with my life, Marlo. I leaned back, letting the words sink in. The girl who'd once been told she was pathetic, now asked to lead an entire arm of a company that actually believed in her. I'll think about it, I said, my voice soft but steady. Good. He stood, offering me his hand. Take the weekend, sleep on it, and thanks for saying yes to us. When he left, I sat alone in the glow of my tiny office lamp, fingers brushing over the silver star on my blazer. I thought about my mother's voice. You've always been the sensible one. Corine's voice. Pathetic. Chad's hiss. You think you're better than me? And then my own voice. Clear and unwavering. Yes. ... That night I walked home under the city's fractured lights, the sidewalks alive with people chasing their next big moment. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was behind them. I was moving forward, step by step, towards something that was mine alone. At the corner bodega, I bought a cheap bottle of champagne. Kara was waiting in my apartment, feet up on the couch, her laptop balanced on her knees. What's this? She asked when I held up the bottle. It's for us, I said. For surviving. For not staying small. She laughed, wiping at her eyes. Damn right. We popped the cork, the fizz spilling onto my chipped kitchen counter. We raised our glasses high, two nobody girls who refused to stay that way. And when I looked out my window that night, I didn't see the ghosts anymore. Just the city. Bright, messy, endless. And for once, it felt like it belonged to me. ... The Monday after Evan offered me the London expansion, I stood at my window with the blinds half open, the city waking up in slow pulses of neon and gray drizzle. I watched the buses crawl through the intersection, people huddled in their coats, their breath like ghosts in the early dawn. My old life used to feel like that. Waiting at the bus stop, half frozen, half asleep, wishing for something bigger. Now the bigness was here, a ticket across the ocean with my name printed on it. I just had to decide if I was brave enough to take it. I called Kara before I left for work. She was already up, making coffee in my tiny kitchen, humming some old pop song under her breath. You're quiet, she said, handing me a chipped mug. Don't tell me you're second-guessing London. I'm not second-guessing, I said carefully. I'm considering. Marlo, that's just a fancy word for panicking. She sat on the counter, barefoot, legs swinging like a kid's. This is the best thing that could happen to you. You get a fresh start in a city that doesn't know your sister's name or your ex-brother-in-law's mess. And you, I teased, bumping her knee. Would you come with me? She shrugged. Try and stop me. I've been dying to escape this city since I was 23. I pictured it, Kara and me, a little flat somewhere near the Thames. Cheap takeaway on the floor after 12-hour days, laughing about the same messes we always did. It felt right, real, mine, ... At the office, Evan cornered me by the kitchenette, a mug of tea steaming in his hands. So? He asked, raising his eyebrows. Tell me you're in. I took a breath. I'm in. His grin split his tired face. Good. You'll kill it over there. Melissa and I will line up your travel plans. Take a week to tie up loose ends, yeah? ... The week flew by in a blur of signatures, goodbye coffees, and awkward hugs from people who still didn't quite know what to make of me. The Pinnacle whistleblower tag still clung to my name like static, but here it felt different, like a badge instead of a bruise. Corrine called once during that week. I let it ring through to voicemail. There was nothing left to say. I didn't even listen to the message. Some threads needed to stay cut. On Friday, Kara and I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes. The same couch where Corrine once hissed that she'd ruin me was now piled with bubble wrap and winter coats I probably wouldn't need in London. Think they'll like us over there? Kara asked, balancing a coffee mug on her knee. They'll love you, I said. Me, they'll tolerate. Rubbish. she said, slipping into a mock British accent that made me snort wine out my nose. They'll worship you. I leaned back against the wall, dizzy with the truth of it. I wasn't running from something this time. I was running toward it. The night before my flight, I took one last walk through the apartment. My little fortress, once a cage, now just empty walls and echoes. The water stain above my bed, the one I used to stare at during sleepless nights, looked like a map to somewhere I'd already been, somewhere I didn't need anymore. I left the key on the counter, locked the door behind me, didn't look back. London was gray and beautiful, a city that felt old and alive all at once. Evan's contacts set me up in a small, serviced flat overlooking a leafy square. My first night there, I lay awake, listening to the hum of buses and late-night laughter drifting up from the pub on the corner. I thought about the Marlowe who'd sat alone in her apartment, counting the cracks in the ceiling, waiting for the next threat to knock on her door. She felt far away now, like a ghost I'd finally put to rest. The London team was tiny, just 4 of us in a space that used to be a law clerk's office. I set up shop at a borrowed desk with mismatched chairs, a dusty whiteboard, and stacks of folders that felt like old friends. The work was hard, long hours, impossible targets, landlords who tried to gouge us for every pound. But it was honest. Mine. Kara found a flat around the corner from mine. Every Friday, we met at a corner table in the pub downstairs, nursing warm pints and fried fish that tasted better than it looked. You ever miss it? She asked one night, dipping a chip into a pool of vinegar. Miss what? All of it. The mess. The old job, Corinne. I swirled my glass, watching the bubbles burst at the surface. I don't miss who I was then. She nodded, raising her glass. To who you are now. We clinked our pints together. The foam spilled over, sticky against my fingers. I didn't wipe it away. Some messes were worth keeping. 6 months in, North Shore London landed its first major client, a big name, enough money to grow our little office to double its size. Evan flew in for a celebration, wearing a coat too thin for the London chill. He pulled me aside after dinner, his eyes shining. This is you, Marlowe. All you. Us, I corrected. Maybe, he said. But you're the reason we're still here. I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my bones. This was my house now. My name on the door. On the anniversary of Chad's sentencing, I got a letter in the post. No return address. The handwriting was familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. You think you won, it read. You didn't. I read it twice. Then I fed it to the tiny fireplace in my flat, watching the paper curl into ash. He was still behind bars. Still powerless. His words were nothing but smoke now. Corrine sent me postcards sometimes. Always from cheap motels in towns I'd never heard of. Sometimes she scribbled a line about finding work, waitressing, temping at some real estate office. Once she mentioned a man named Felix she'd met who made her laugh. But she never asked to see me. I never offered. Some bonds are better left broken. But sometimes I'd pin her cards to my fridge. A reminder that you can survive anything if you're willing to shed the version of yourself that made it possible. One night, walking home from the office through the drizzle, I stopped at the river. The water shimmered under the streetlights, dark and alive, carrying everything away if you let it. I thought about what I'd tell the girl I used to be, the one who stayed quiet when Corinne called her job pathetic, the one who flinched at every slam of the door, every hissed insult, every lie she swallowed to keep the peace. I'd tell her, don't swallow it, don't shrink, don't let the people who fear your light tell you to dim it. I'd tell her, keep going, it gets better, you get better. I stood there until the drizzle turned to real rain, soaking my hair, running down the collar of my coat. I let it wash over me, the chill reminding me that I was still here, alive, whole, When I got home, Kara was curled up on my couch, scrolling through flats she couldn't afford yet. She looked up at me, one eyebrow raised. Long walk? Long life, I said. Come on, I'll make tea. She followed me into my tiny kitchen. We stood side by side in the warm hum of the kettle, the rain tapping at the window like a song only we could hear. Somewhere, across an ocean, my family probably sat down to another Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe my mother still asked about me in hushed tones. Maybe, Corinne answered. Or maybe they all pretended I didn't exist. Just a ghost who refused to stay small. That was fine by me, because I was here, building something that was mine. Not alone, not silent, not pathetic, just Marlowe. And that was enough. .. I woke up on my 1-year anniversary in London to the sound of rain drumming gently against my window. For once, it wasn't the kind of storm that made you want to hide. It was soft, cleansing, a reminder that everything grows again if you just let it. Kara was already in my kitchen when I shuffled out, hair piled in a messy knot, wearing a robe 2 sizes too big. She handed me a mug of tea, her eyes twinkling. To the girl who blew up her life and built something better, she said. You make it sound so poetic, I said, blowing steam off the rim. It is poetic, she insisted, hopping up to sit on my tiny countertop. You know how rare this is, right? Most people stay stuck in their wreckage. You didn't. I smiled but didn't answer. I thought about Corinne, wherever she was now. About Chad, still rotting in a cell. About my mother, who hadn't called since the day she told me I wasn't welcome at her table. They were all ghosts I'd stopped carrying on my shoulders. I had other things to carry now. Better things. Real things. .. That day at work, Evan cornered me before lunch, shoving a file into my hands. Big client, he said, eyes dancing with excitement. Huge. Could double our revenue if we land it. I flipped through the pages, scanning the numbers, the scope. It's doable, I said, even though my pulse ticked faster. But it'll be a fight. When is it ever not a fight? He grinned. You're the best person to lead it. I watched him walk away, file clutched to my chest like a dare. The old Marlowe would have second-guessed herself until the opportunity slipped through her fingers. This Marlowe, the one who'd survived a corporate coup, a family implosion, and a monster at her door, just rolled up her sleeves and started to plan. .. Late that night, the office empty except for the cleaning crew humming through the halls, I sat at my desk, pinning up timelines and budgets on my corkboard. My reflection stared back from the dark window, hair escaping my ponytail, sleeves rolled to my elbows, eyes tired but bright. You got this, I told myself. You always did. .. The new project meant long days, longer nights, and endless cups of bitter coffee that never stayed warm long enough. Kara joked that she was considering an intervention when she found me asleep at my desk for the 3rd time in a week. You look like a raccoon, she said, flicking the empty mug by my elbow. A successful raccoon, I shot back, stretching my aching arms. Besides, this is how we win. She didn't argue. She just slipped an energy bar onto my keyboard and made me promise to call her if I needed to crash anywhere other than my office floor. .. One evening, after a 12-hour day that bled into a 4-hour strategy session with Evan and a client who couldn't stop clearing his throat, I trudged home through streets slick with rain and the scent of fried food drifting from late-night takeaway shops. A postcard was wedged in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting stopped me cold. Corinne. Still trying, it read. Felix is gone. But I'm not. Hope you're still not small. I ran my thumb over the smudged ink. No contact number, no address, just those few words. Like a breadcrumb she was tossing from whatever ruin she'd crawled into next. I pinned it to my fridge next to a photo Kara had snapped of us in our new office. Both of us cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by folders, grinning like idiots. A reminder of where I'd come from, and who I'd chosen to keep. Spring in London felt like waking up. The gray haze lifted. The tiny square outside my flat bloomed into a mess of daffodils and tulips, They reminded me of the flower beds Mom used to plant every year when we were kids, before everything got so tangled between us. One Saturday, Kara dragged me to a street market. We wove through stalls of homemade candles, spiced chai, and cheap jewelry that left green rings on your fingers. She bought a stack of bracelets and made me wear 3, each one with a single word stamped into the metal. Brave, true, more. To remind you, she said, knotting the leather cords around my wrist. Of what? I asked, laughing. That you're always more than what they said you were. She squeezed my shoulder. Always. ... By summer, the London branch was thriving. I hired my own team. 10 people who trusted my vision, who didn't flinch when I told them no, or try harder, or we're not doing it the Pinnacle way. Some days, the ghosts of my old office still whispered that I was out of my depth, a fraud waiting to drown. But I drowned those whispers out with the sound of my people laughing over late-night pizza or clinking glasses in a pub when we hit our targets. One night, after landing the deal Evan had handed me, I stood in the tiny conference room with my team. Kara had ordered 2 bottles of cheap champagne and a mountain of chips. The walls rattled with our laughter. I caught my reflection in the window again, confetti stuck in my hair, a smear of ketchup on my cheek. This was the version of me I wished my parents could see. Messy, loud, real, not perfect, not polite, not small, ... That same week, my mother called. The number flashed on my screen, dredging up 100 Thanksgivings, 1,000 slammed doors. Are you going to answer? Kara asked, peeking over my shoulder. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Not tonight, I said. Maybe not ever. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. ... I turned 32 in a pub in Shoreditch, surrounded by people who knew my story and loved me anyway. Evan gave a drunken toast that made me laugh so hard I cried. Kara gave me a cheap crown from a party store and made me wear it until closing. To the queen of second chances, she said, raising her glass. I raised mine back. To not wasting them. ... Sometimes I still dream of that Thanksgiving table. The smell of dry turkey and Corian's smirk that cut deeper than any blade Chad ever pulled on me. But when I wake, it's always to the same thing. My own heartbeat, strong and steady. My tiny flat with its creaky floors and leaky faucet that I still haven't fixed. The hum of London alive outside my window. The ghosts are still there. They always will be. But they don't get to eat at my table anymore. I set the table myself now. And there's always room for more. ... I woke up the morning after my 32nd birthday with confetti in my hair and a half-eaten slice of cake on my nightstand. The cheap crown Kara had made me wear all night sat crooked beside my pillow, a silly little relic of a night that reminded me just how far I'd come. In the past, birthdays were just another marker of how little I'd done right, according to Corrine, according to my mother, according to every ghost that had whispered I'd never be enough. But this one felt different. Like a door opening instead of closing. Kara found me in the kitchen, barefoot in my worn-out pajamas, sipping coffee from a chipped mug with a star on the handle. You look happy, she teased, rummaging through my fridge for leftover cake. I am happy, I said. The words tasted new. Bright. Scared, but happy. She poked my arm with a fork. Good. You should be scared. That means it matters. ... The next few months were the hardest work I'd ever done. London was thriving, but it was growing so fast I felt like I was building a house in a wind tunnel. New clients, new hires, new fires to put out every day. Some mornings I'd sit on the floor of my shower, forehead pressed to my knees just to quiet my racing thoughts long enough to stand up and do it again. But the difference now was this. I wasn't alone. Kara was always there, perched on the corner of my desk with takeout containers and half-baked ideas that somehow always turned into gold. Evan called every other week to remind me that none of this would exist if not for me. And my team, their trust in me was the loudest armor I'd ever worn. Late one Thursday, I found myself staring at the city from my office window. The rain streaked the glass, the streetlights below turning everything into a watercolor of gold and gray. I thought about how Kareen once called my job pathetic. How she'd laughed at my ambition like it was a toy I'd never outgrow. Now here I was, running an entire branch in a city thousands of miles from that old table. And for once, I didn't feel the need to shove it in her face. She'd seen enough of what I could do. The rest was for me. ... One evening, as I was packing up, Kara dropped a thick envelope onto my desk. "Open it," she said, bouncing on her heels. Inside was a plane ticket. One way, back home. "You need to see your mom," she said before I could protest. "You need to put it all to bed." "And you think showing up at her door with a suitcase will do that?" I asked, trying to laugh. But my throat felt tight. "I think not showing up means you'll never know," she said gently. "Go. Close the door if you need to, or leave it cracked. But stop letting it haunt you. ... The flight felt like a time machine. The closer I got, the more I felt that old weight pressing against my ribs. I could see every version of myself sitting at that Thanksgiving table. Young, small, desperate for Kareen to stop looking through me like I was glass. When the taxi pulled up to my mother's house, I almost told the driver to keep going, but I got out. I owed that much to the girl who once thought she'd never be brave enough. The house looked the same, peeling paint, the porch swing creaking in the breeze. I knocked before I could chicken out. My mother opened the door, her eyes going wide when she saw me. She looked older than I remembered. Smaller, somehow. "Marlo," she breathed. "Look at you." "Hi, Mom," I said. And for once, it didn't feel like an apology. She let me in. The kitchen smelled like coffee, and something faintly burnt. We sat at the same scarred table where Kareen once called me pathetic. "I read about what happened," she said after a while. "Chad, the company, all of it." "Yeah," I said. "It was a lot." She looked down at her hands. "I should have called. I should have been better. It wasn't everything I'd come to hear, but it was something." "I'm okay now," I said. "Better than okay." She smiled. Small, sad, but real. "I know you are." We didn't fix everything in that hour. Some things stay cracked, no matter how you try to glue them back together. But when I hugged her goodbye, I felt lighter than I had in years. ... Back in London, I dove into the work with a hunger that surprised even me. The branch expanded again, a second floor added to our building. I hired more people, built more systems, let my name become a quiet promise to every woman who ever thought she wasn't enough. One night, after a brutal week, Kara and I sat on my couch, knees touching, a bottle of cheap red wine between us. "Do you think they'd recognize you now?" she asked, swirling her glass. "Who?" "Kareen, Chad, your mother, all of them." I thought about it. Maybe, but it doesn't matter if they do. I recognize me. She grinned. Damn right. We toasted to that, the city buzzing quietly outside my window. ... A year turned into 2. London turned into Berlin, then Amsterdam. Each new office was another brick in the life I'd built from the ashes of that dinner table. Each new hire was another reminder that my story wasn't a cautionary tale. It was a blueprint. Sometimes, I'd come home to another postcard from Kareen. They came less often now, shorter each time. The last one just said, "Still here." No return address. No signature. Just 3 words that meant more than an entire apology ever could. ... Last month, on the anniversary of Chad's sentencing, I took Kara to the Thames. We stood at the edge of the river, the wind tugging at our coats. The city spread out around us like a promise kept. "If you could say one thing to them now," Kara asked, "what would you say?" I looked out at the water, my breath a soft cloud. "Thank you. Thank you," she scoffed. "For what?" "For teaching me how to fight back, how to stand up, how to choose myself when nobody else would." She slipped her arm through mine, leaning her head on my shoulder. "They'd hate that." I laughed, the sound echoing off the river's dark surface. "Good. ... The ghosts are still there. They always will be. But now they're quiet. tame. They don't rattle the doorknob anymore. They don't knock on my windows in the middle of the night. They just watch as I live the life they said I'd never have. A life that's big, messy, beautiful, mine. And I'm not done yet. Dash 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 dot. It's strange how the world keeps spinning even when your life is cracking open. Strange, too, how it keeps spinning after you've put yourself back together again. Stronger, louder, braver. I thought about that the morning I stepped into our new office in Berlin. The windows overlooked a gray stretch of river, where ferries cut through the water like knives. A different river. A different city. The same pulse in my chest. You're here because you didn't stop. Kara was already waiting for me inside, a pastry in each hand, her grin wide enough to split her face in two. "This is insane," she said, spinning in a circle, arms flung wide. "You know that, right?" "It is," I agreed, insane in the best way. I dropped my bag onto the single battered chair by the door. The space was raw, exposed brick, a ceiling that leaked when it rained, a tangle of wires where the Wi-Fi was supposed to be. A year ago, this would have made me sick with worry. Now it just looked like possibility. Kara plopped down onto the floor, cross-legged, tearing into her pastry. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked around a mouthful of dough. "Corinne, Chad, your mother." "Sometimes," I said, leaning against the window, tracing my finger through the condensation. "But they don't feel so close anymore." "That's the point," Kara said. "You outran them." Dash 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 dot dot. The Berlin branch was chaos. Good chaos. The kind that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and knowing you'd built the wings to fly. Some nights, I lay on my back on the dusty floor, my team sprawled around me, our laughter echoing off the brick walls as we dreamed up ways to do it better, bigger, smarter. We made mistakes. God, did we make mistakes? But each one felt like a lesson, not a death sentence. We fixed them, we kept going. Quessa Jew. Evan visited twice that year, each time bringing new ideas and a battered duffel bag full of paperwork I'd spend weeks untangling. He'd watch me pace the office, hair pulled back, fingers drumming on my laptop as I planned and planned and planned. "You don't have to keep proving it, you know," he said once, catching my wrist mid-pace. "Proving what?" "That you belong here. You already do." I laughed, but it wasn't bitter like it used to be. "It's not about them anymore, it's about me." He smiled, dropping my wrist. "Good. Dash dash dash, dot dot." Winter in Berlin came hard and fast. The first snow painted the rooftops white overnight. I found myself standing at the window, breath fogging the glass, watching Kara chase snowflakes on the street below like a child who'd never seen them before. A ping on my phone pulled me back, an email from my mother, just 3 lines. "I hope you're warm, I hope you're happy, I hope you come home someday." I didn't write back, but I saved it. Because it didn't sting anymore, it felt like a sigh, a letting go, dash dash dash, dot dot. The ghosts still tested me sometimes. At a networking event, a man leaned in close and asked, "Weren't you the girl who got her sister's husband fired?" He said girl like it was an insult, like I was still small enough to be stepped on. I sipped my wine, smiled with all my teeth. "No," I said, "I'm the woman who did what needed to be done." It didn't have a comeback for that. Dash dash dash, dot dot. On the first anniversary of the Berlin branch, we held a party in our half-finished space. Folding tables, mismatched chairs, cheap fairy lights that blinked too fast. Kara brought a cake that said, "No more ghosts." We ate it with plastic forks, toasting with warm beer. Somewhere around midnight, my phone buzzed. Another postcard. No address, no return. Just Corine's handwriting, shaky but familiar. "I'm still here. I got a job, a real one, no more motels. Just wanted you to know." I read it once. Twice. Tucked it into my bag, A quiet piece of proof that even the broken ones can find a way back. Dash dash dash, dot dot. Years passed like that. Branches in new cities, mistakes and triumphs stacked side by side. I learned to hold both. To know that you can be proud and scared at the same time. That you can love the scars that got you here. Sometimes, when the weight of it all felt too much, I'd stand by the river and watch the water slip by, carrying every old version of myself away. The girl at that Thanksgiving table. The woman clutching a lamp to her chest as Chad rattled her door. The sister who thought she'd always be less. I loved them all, but I didn't need them anymore. Dash dash dash, dot dot. One night, on the 5th anniversary of North Shore Berlin, Kara and I sat on the floor of my apartment, a bottle of whiskey between us. She lifted her glass, her eyes glassy with tired, happy tears. "You did it," she said. "You made something they couldn't take from you." I clinked my glass to hers. "No," I said. "We did." The city hummed outside my window, alive and waiting. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes, letting it all in. The bruises, the breaks, the beauty of every terrible thing that taught me how to stand. I didn't plan to go back for Thanksgiving, not that year, not ever really. But sometimes life circles back around, demanding you stand where you once stood, just to prove you don't break the same way twice. It started with an email from my mother, longer this time, full of polite questions, gentle updates, like we were strangers who'd once shared a house. "It would mean a lot," she wrote, "if you came home. Just for dinner." I read it in my Berlin flat, surrounded by blueprints and half-packed suitcases for yet another new branch opening. I read it again on the flight back, Kara sleeping with her head on my shoulder, her feet propped on my carry-on. I didn't tell her what I'd decided. She knew. She always did. Dash dash dash, dot dot. The town looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was. Or maybe I'd just outgrown the shrinking walls of what they said I could be. My mother's house smelled the same. Coffee, furniture polish, the lingering echo of every argument we never finished. She opened the door like she'd been holding her breath for years. "Marlo," she said, and hugged me so tight I almost forgot who we'd been to each other. Dinner was awkward. The table was smaller now, too. Fewer voices, fewer interruptions. Corinne wasn't there. I'd asked, quietly, if she'd been invited. "She's out west now," my mother said. "I think she's happy." Happy. That was enough. I spooned mashed potatoes onto my plate and smiled when my mother asked about my work. I told her about Berlin, about London, about the next city waiting to be built from the ruins of the old. She didn't ask for details about Chad. She didn't say the word pathetic. She didn't flinch when I said my team instead of my company. It was imperfect. But so was I. After dinner, I stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing plates that felt heavier than they should have. My mother leaned beside me, her eyes on the backyard where I used to sneak away when the walls pressed too tight. "You were always stronger than me," she said softly. "You never had to be," I said. And it didn't feel cruel, just true. We didn't hug again. But when I left, she pressed a note into my hand. Just a phone number, just in case. The door clicked shut behind me with a softness that made my chest ache. Dash dash dash, dot dot. Kara met me at a diner on the edge of town, the same one I'd run to when Chad's shadow had filled my apartment. She slid a cup of watery coffee across the table. "So," she said, "you survive." "I didn't just survive," I said. "I outgrew it." She raised her mug. "To outgrowing. Dash dash dash, dot dot." Back in Berlin, the new office was chaos again. Wires that didn't connect, invoices that got lost in translation, a team too young to know they were building something nobody could take from them. I stood at the window, the river cutting through the city like a line I'd crossed 1,000 times. Below, my people laughed over cardboard boxes and cheap pizza, the way I once had with Kara on the floor of my old flat. The ghosts didn't knock anymore, but sometimes, late at night, I'd still hear them whisper, reminding me not to get comfortable, not to shrink, not to forget. And I'd whisper back, I remember. I always will. Dash dash dash, dot dot. The postcard came on a rainy Tuesday. No return address, just a scrap of a life that used to be mine. Still here, it said. Still trying. Happy Thanksgiving. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to a photo of Kara and me standing in front of the Berlin office sign, our grins crooked and real. A reminder that you can't erase the past, but you can build right over it. Dash dash dash, dot dot. Sometimes I think about that girl at the Thanksgiving table, the one who stayed quiet when her sister called her life worthless, the one who let herself be small because it was easier than standing up. If I could sit across from her now, I'd take her hand and tell her this: you're not small. You never were. You were just waiting for the day you'd believe it. I'd tell her, the ghosts will knock, the doors will rattle, the wolves will pound on your windows, but you'll hold your ground. And one day, you'll sit at a table you set yourself. No apologies, no shame, no shrinking. One day, you'll look around and see that the life they said was pathetic is the foundation you rebuilt the world on. And they can't touch you there. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The next morning, I unlocked the office, the smell of fresh paint and cheap coffee wrapping around me like a promise. Kara wandered in behind me, hair a mess, humming some song I didn't recognize. Another city? She asked, half smiling. Maybe, I said, but only if you're coming too. She bumped her shoulder into mine. Always. I sat at my desk, the sun breaking through the Berlin gray, turning the river into a ribbon of gold. The team trickled in, laughter echoing off the bare walls, possibility humming in every corner. I traced my finger over the silver star pinned to my blazer, the one Kara gave me the day I left everything behind. A reminder that no matter how dark it gets, some lights you never let go out. They were right about one thing all those Thanksgivings ago. I was never like them. And thank God for that. Because I am not small. Not silent. Not pathetic. I am Marlo Hensley. And this is only the beginning. Dash, 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 dot, dot. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Dash, 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 dot.